Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. Hey, this is a platform for sponsors, supporters, volunteers, businesses, things of that nature that supporting our veterans, our combat veterans, their stories, and everybody else's in between. There's so many nonprofits that are doing incredible things out there to veterans that are trying to make things happen in society and everything in between. Hey, I got a great guest on today. Hopefully, we'll get JB Brown on deck. Obviously, Chef JB. Um, we had a good time this weekend. Obviously, it's the 4th of July, 250th anniversary. Such an incredible time, and the spirit of the day was just incredible. We had some great smoking going on out in the mountains up in Cold Creek Pass, and just enjoying some great food and great company. This is being brought to you by the Veterans Transition Resource Center. This is where the studios, and we're doing some incredible things out of here, and so many other nonprofits that are doing great. Warrior Bill Foundation, PTSD Foundation of America, Recon Chief Incorporated, and anything in between. There's so many other ones. I'd love to work with and do a lot of things. My guest today is Jessica Povey. She is a nurse. She's been a nurse for a whole bunch of years, 18 years, I believe, and a trauma nurse at that. And she has an incredible story. We also have the first responders telling their stories here and their involvement with combat veterans or whatever it is. And Jesse has an incredible story and an awesome story with the Warrior Build Foundation. So, Jesse, how you doing? Thanks a lot for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be on here.
Yeah, so we can go back and tell us, as you grew up, talk about that a little bit, and what it was that motivated you to get into medicine, and obviously trauma, racing, all this other cool stuff that you've been part of. So this will be a great story. It's your story.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be on here. Medicine's kind of always been something I've been around. I grew up actually as a pretty sick kid, in and out of the hospital through a good portion of my childhood, and with a ton of support from, the medical community, staff, nurses. I can remember being in the hospital and being taken care of so greatly and thinking, I want to do this for somebody else. And then um, coming from a smaller community, I'm from Reno, Nevada, but my whole family is from Urrington, Nevada, which is a really small town. And just working around EMS, search and rescue, being around that within our small community really kind of brought my attention to what I wanted to do and helping others and being part of that. My dad raced motorcycles. I met my husband at an off-road race. And so for us, being part of the EMS and racing community is something that has always been a strong part of my heart. High school in Nevada, they let you get your EMT. And so I got that pretty early on, went to nursing school and just fell in love with trauma, fell in love with emergency medicine. Although I think I've done just about everything you can imagine in the nursing field, from oncology to physical rehab to, ICU, cardiac trauma. It's just really opened my eyes to all the different avenues of medicine that are available to work in and just get experience in.
And what school did you end up going to, and how did that work out? And what did you have to do to make sure that happened?
So thankfully I was super super well supported by my family, and they kind of always were there backing me up. And when I told them that I wanted to go to nursing school and wanted to work in EMS, they were right there behind me the whole way. Went to college at University of Nevada, Reno, and actually ended up transitioning because it was taking too long to get into their nursing program. So went to Truckee Meadows Community College, got my nursing degree, got my RN, and started working right away in our local hospital. And then from there, after being a nurse for about 10 years, I decided that I wanted to go back and get my bachelor's. And so did that program through Marysville University out of St. Louis. Got that in 2022, I think. And then I've certified in a number of different areas, from oncology to trauma to um, just board certifications, just trying to expand my knowledge. I'm one of those people that can't hold my attention for very long, so I'm a lifelong learner in any way that I can expand my knowledge in any form of medicine. EMS is something that I really enjoy doing.
And racing, obviously, your dad kind of got you into that a little bit because he loved the motorcycle stuff, right? And
Yes,
then
I have
talk
some
about
friends.
talk about your racing and why that's such an important part of your life too.
Yeah, no, my dad, he ran racing and hare and hound growing up, and I have some phenomenal pictures from his racing days and some awesome stories that, I grew up with. And oddly enough, one of my husband's best friends brought me out to a race in our hometown of Urington, and he said, you'll fall in love with this. He's like, this is right up your alley. He's like, you love the outdoors, you love racing, you love anything with a motor, like you'll be right on point. And I absolutely fell in love with it. That was actually where I met my husband, was that first race, and we got to know each other, and from there it just kind of grew into a passion for both of us. I had always grown up on motorcycles and quads, and he grew up in buggies and race trucks, and so together we decided that we were going to pursue this passion together. And with that, I took my EMS and medical knowledge along with me, which opened up a lot of really cool doors that I think a lot of people don't know are available. And a lot of that comes to racing medicine, and it's a really untapped avenue that I think provides a lot of opportunity both for racers to get better care, as well as for EMS and nursing folks to get involved and realize that there's a lot more that they can contribute to the racing community as a whole.
So you were able to tie in your passion for medicine and your passion for racing and create, obviously, being a flight nurse on top of that with the medicine is super important because some of these remote areas, and especially in Reno, the Vegas to Reno race is such a huge piece, and Warrior Built races that the Baja races are so incredibly long. I mean, you got 1,000-mile race, and there's nothing in between for medicine, and really a lot of these helicopters are landing and picking up these guys and getting them to where they can go, even if they're not medically certified, especially in Baja. But it's such an incredible thing. So talk about that and what that has meant to you to be so passionate in both different directions, racing and emergency medicine. What a cool way to combo that.
Yeah, it was a very serendipitous moment. My husband had taken a job with a pretty large race team out of Las Vegas, and they had just decided that they wanted to start carrying medical personnel on board that aircraft. And so the crew chief at the time knew that I was a nurse, and he asked, hey, would you be interested if, we met all the rules and, we got a doctor to sign off on things? Would you be interested in flying with us and kind of being the team nurse medic and racing with us? And I said, absolutely. Sounds fantastic. I had already done some minor work with local racing associations up in Reno as far as providing some on call and rescue help in the remoter areas, being able to um, ride in off-road race vehicles and being comfortable in that scenario and that dynamic gave me an opportunity to already have some experience in remote access and almost search and rescue like scenarios. So I started flying specifically for that race team for about 6 years, I think. So my flight experience is very different than a lot of flight nurses. I worked out of the public sector, and so it gave a very interesting perspective because unlike, most flight teams, you have a nurse, a medic, and a pilot. And sometimes you even have a person, whether it be another nurse or another medic. And in the scenario where I was working, it was just me. I always joke that my partner was our camera guy, and he learned probably a lot more about medicine than he ever wanted to know flying with me. I mean, he knew my bag inside and out. He worked with me on multiple incidents where, there were no other hands on deck to help. And so it really gave me an opportunity to expand my knowledge. And it also opened my eyes to the world of, what is motorsports medicine and how does it actually look like in the field and in reality. And, one of those experiences was with Warrior Built, and it's one that's still near and dear to my heart, and one that, I will hold forever in my heart for multiple reasons. But, many times the flight medic or the flight nurse on these private aircraft are the only help for hundreds of miles. especially when we're talking about Baja. There is not necessarily a designated safety team or medical team available to respond to these incidents. So the closest available aircraft, if they're carrying medical personnel, you are the rescue team and you are the person going to that. I can tell you that I flew multiple search and reconnaissance missions trying to find lost or down riders. We've landed for dehydration. We've landed for, wrecks. We've seen how brutal off-road racing can be, especially when you're in another country. And I think it's a huge aspect of race medicine that is unknown still and has a lot of opportunity to improve. And we're seeing that, I think, every season get a little bit better. And for me, my goal is always that everybody comes home. No race is worth losing your life over, but it happens. And any way we can mitigate that and decrease those chances, for me, is worth it. It's worth every minute, every piece of training, every, decision that I make. I will stand behind that. And I think it's a really huge part of, the development of racing overall.
Incredible. And your passion sounds absolutely amazing. And I understand medicine because as being a corpsman, that's really what I am. I'm a trauma god from what they say, or, we earn this title doc after we graduate FMSS, and we hang out with the Marine Corps and do dangerous stuff all the time. And we still get out of the military and do dangerous stuff. We're going to get into the Warrior Build story in just a second, but Chef JB, how you doing, brother? I just wanted to, say, sorry, I didn't send you the link. I sent the link to everybody but you. And I was like, oh no, okay. We got you the link.
Good afternoon. Thanks. And then my batteries were out of my camera,
Oh man. Hey, so, how you doing, Chef? Hey, it was great hanging out with you on the 4th of July. We had some awesome stuff. You cooked it up, Chef JB, Chef of the Year out here in Vegas and knocking it out just for this awesome party for the VTRC and all the guests for the guys that were out there. So it was
smoked
incredible.
Lobster, we had shrimp, king crab legs, alligator tail fried.
Oh, wow. First time for me to try that.
Daggone. Yep. And welcome, Jesse. I was listening to your story there. That's great. I mean, what a dedicated thing, I'm amazed, but I do see the need or know the need when you're hurt or you're sick, you need help, and that's, thank God somebody's there, My hats off to you.
And Jesse, when we get back into the story, this isn't just off-road racing that you're part of. You do a lot of track racing too, right? You're part of an awesome team that has all these exotic cars. Talk about that for a quick minute, and then we'll get, Chris Carlisle. I just want to put it out there. Chris Carlisle, awesome Marine, 2 Purple Hearts, one in Iraq, one in Afghanistan. Good buddy of mine. And we lost him, unfortunately. And we're going to go into that story of what, everything you did to try to save his life. And, these things, sometimes just, it's internal bleeding that took him, and we'll get into that story, but, talk a little bit before just about not just the racing off-road, but the track racing too, and what you're involved in with that.
Yeah. As my career progressed and I moved out of the bedside and kind of into the tech world, I was given the opportunity to join a safety team that covers, multiple avenues from NASCAR to USF to IMSA. And it really has given me the opportunity to learn a lot more about different aspects of racing and race medicine. I get to work with some incredible practitioners, both emergency medicine docs. I get to work with some of the most incredible trauma and neurosurgeons out in the world. I've learned so much kind of in that vein. I get to work with some incredible paramedics, some firefighters, and it really just allows you to work in a very different dynamic in the sense of you have a very experienced team. You have a team that knows everybody's role. Everybody has a part to play and they understand that. And it gives you the ability to do some incredible work. We've had cars on their roofs, we've had cars on fire, and we've gotten back to racing in under 10 minutes. And it just shows that with the quality of training and the knowledge and the talent that is out there and the passion to do what we do, we get to do some really incredible things. And, between saving lives and just even getting crews back out on the track and giving them the opportunity to get back into racing as soon as possible. It's an absolutely incredible experience, and I've gotten to work with some of the best folks in the world when you talk about race medicine, and it's probably one of my favorite aspects of what I do.
Yeah, it is. And I just want to throw it out there. Like, a lot of people might not understand racing and why it's such a transition for, I would say, our military to get involved in, is because there's a thing called throttle therapy. And I just talked to QRFup.com yesterday. I talked to Stephen Hammer, and he was explaining, he's got this big program for veterans to get involved with NASCAR and doing some things, 10 different seats for that, the pit crew, and being part of the pit crew. And that's really where I am a lot of times. I love it too, because when the car comes in, you get to evaluate to make sure the driver's still okay, make sure that they're hydrated, got some food, all these different things, right? It's not just medicine, like medicine that's needed, trauma. It's about evaluation, constantly making sure everybody's okay, making sure everybody's staying hydrated. So many other aspects to the life system to keep it moving, and not just for you, not just for the racer, but for the whole staff. And Jesse, you do it, and you've done it. And let's go into the Chris Carlisle story, and you can talk about why and how that whole thing went down. I wasn't there for this race. The Vegas to Reno is a very famous race. It's really awesome to be part of. And some of these guys, man, they full throttle all the way. And Chris was an almost professional racer on the motorcycle. And he understood dirt bikes like it was cool. And his family's all into racing out in the desert and doing that. And he was just getting it and loving it. And we talked about it. And go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, so 2017 is a Vegas to Reno that I will definitely never forget. It's one that will forever be in my heart for, like I said, a number of reasons. I was racing with our Red Bull team, and I was flying in that race in our aircraft. We were actually running behind in that race. We had multiple flats that we didn't expect, and so we were running a lot farther back in the pack than we normally would be. And so we actually were in between, I think, pit 11 and 12, just outside of Mina, which is I wouldn't even call it a small mining town. It's a blip on the map if you're lucky on a good day. You'll probably miss it if you blink. And so we came over the hill out of the canyon, and we saw another aircraft on the ground with what appeared to be somebody down. And so our pilot radioed down to that other pilot and asked if they needed assistance. And they said, yes, we have somebody down. We need medical assistance. And so we circled back around, came down, we landed next to him. I saw Chris down on the ground on one side of the track and his bike propped up on the other side of the track. I immediately hopped out. Our camera guy, who, again, absolutely incredible, grabbed my medical bag while I ran over to start assessing him, and he brought up my bag behind me. We determined that something was very, very wrong. At that point in time, just doing basic assessment, we knew that whatever had happened was significant and that we needed to move him. So we started just kind of the basic maneuvers, C-spine, doing pelvic palpation, trying to determine, what was going on. Is this internal bleeding? Is this broken bones, broken pelvis? Was he hit by something? Did he fall? And he had very limited ability to communicate with us. He was in a significant amount of pain. He was really struggling to tell us what was going on. And we were able to get his name and that, he was hurting. And so we started an IV on him. We determined that we needed to life flight him out of there. So, between me and our camera guy, we got him into our aircraft. We left our camera guy in the middle of the desert, and we took off with the intention of heading to the next pit where there was an ambulance station that we could get some more support at. During that flight, we found additional injuries that were not visible on the ground once we were able to start, removing, his jerseys and things like that, determined that there was some significant blood loss. We landed at pit 12 and found that the ambulance crew had gone out with the Warrior Built team, which I had not met in person yet, as they saw on their technology that their rider was down as well. we made a judgment call, being that we had no additional medical assistance, that we were going to fly to the nearest hospital, which was Hawthorne, Nevada, which was probably about a 15-minute flight. But we did have to cross into military airspace. So we were taking a risk because this wasn't a standard flight path. This was not a standard maneuver. So we kind of took a risk and decided that that was the best option. During this, we determined that there was definitely some significant internal bleeding, that he was going to need some follow-up once we got to that hospital, and likely need to go to a further trauma center. Once we got there, we were able to radio in. They were able to get an ambulance crew out to us to help us get him in from there. This was a critical access hospital. This is not a trauma hospital. This is a hospital that has, 5 staff members in the ED on a good day. And so at that point, I stayed in the hospital with them, helped stabilize him. At that point, he was able to talk to us. I held his hand the whole time. We got fluid started on him, x-rays, made a plan of attack. He stabilized at that point. And then we were told, we needed to move our helicopter because that's the only landing pad at the facility. And they needed to bring in the next medevac for him to fly to the trauma hospital. So at that point, we knew he had something pretty severe going on, but we had stabilized him. We had started fluids, started blood. We had done everything possible to set him up for survival. I told him bye and that I would follow up with him. And I walked out the door, and that was the last I saw of him. And he told me, thank you. And, I shook his hand and I told him to hang in there. And we went back on the flight, went back out to where we had left our camera guy in the middle of the desert. And that is where I met Nick Ham from Warrior Built, who was actually out there picking up Chris's bike. And, I gave him a report, told him kind of what was going on, what we knew, and how he was. He gave me his card and he said, stay in contact. And so we continued on with our race. As we got to the final helipad where we were landing, I had messaged Nick and said, hey, any updates? How's he doing? And it was at that point that he called and let me know that Chris did not survive, that he was loaded into the next medevac and was on his route to the trauma center and did not survive that flight. And from there, I developed a very strong relationship with Warrior Belt. They really took me in under their wing and made me part of their family. Gave me the opportunity to meet Chris's family, to meet you folks, and really just kind of be taken in as part of their families. And I still talk to Chris's family today, his mom and his sisters. I got to meet his children, and, I gave them the best closure that I could and told my story of what had happened so that they could possibly know. And, every year on the anniversary of his passing, the Warrior Built guys reach out to me. A lot of the Marines that Chris served with that came into contact with me over social media and through Warrior Built, they call and check on me, his family. We all, have remained in close contact, and knowing that, he is watching over us now. And, he's kind of our guardian angel every time we suit up and head out into the desert or head to the track. And it's a reminder of how fragile life is, and that even when you're doing something that you love and that you're passionate for, nothing's guaranteed. And it's one of the main reasons that I continue to do what I do as a medical professional in racing is, I want everybody to come home. To me, no race is worth your life, but at the same time, it's the risk that we all run. My husband's a racer. He'll be racing in 2 weeks, I think. It's not something that I take lightly as both a medical professional and a wife and a mother and somebody who in my own right really enjoys throttle therapy myself. And, it's something that I think we have, plenty of room to improve and to really make strides in motorsports medicine, especially when we're talking about off-road racing, because there are very few support mechanisms in place. Doesn't mean that we're doing it wrong. It just means that we can do it better. And I think there's huge opportunity there. And Chris's story is one of those where I think there's lots that we can learn from it. I don't think that any of us did anything wrong. We did the best with what we had to work with, similar to, military medicine. You don't always have the resources, so you do the best with what you can. And, I've been super well supported afterwards. And while it is something that, still weighs heavy on me. And as any medical professional will tell you, you'll sit there and you'll look back and you'll go, well, what if I did this, or should I have done that? If I did this, would it have been different? And I've told this story to many of my other, racing professionals and race medics and docs, and they all say the same thing. Hindsight's 2020, and there's nothing that you could have done in that moment that would have changed the outcome. All you can do is learn from it. And so that's a big thing for us is, taking those moments and appreciating life for what it is, and then learning from, those scenarios, no matter how tragic they are.
Exactly. And thanks for taking that on. This is the first time I've ever heard the story in this kind of detail. And, Chris was one of these guys that was bigger than life in a lot of ways. And if anybody ever ran into him, he was just a guy that you just took advice from. And he had advice. He had life experience, Marine experience, combat experience. And I remember we shot a video of a group for the PTSD Foundation of America, and Warrior Built, like, hey, here's what we do at Warrior Built. We got this lounge, and Chris was doing, it was a fake group. It was just like, we're filming it just to show that we do this group. But I remember Chris gave a speech in there when he was talking about it, that he could learn from each one of us at any given time. And this is where I got the whole puzzle pieces that I talk about all the time. He's like, I can get a puzzle piece from this person or that person, and it puts it together, and it helps deal with PTSD on a different level, or it helps deal with life on a different level. But Chris was just bigger than life. And it's such an honor for you to tell the story that you did. And thanks for helping and trying to make this happen. And I didn't know you had to fly through, military territory, but Hawthorne is an Army base, and it's one of the largest bases we got, that munition base. And it's kind of crazy. If you go out and see this place, it's in the beautiful mountain scenery, and there's just tons and tons of like bunkers everywhere, and you're just as far as the eye can see, and warehouses. Yeah. It's crazy. So for you to have to fly to Hawthorne, incredible. I mean, just for you to take the initiative to be like, hey, we got to get the job done. Yeah, this is military territory. The communication probably didn't take place, and the amount of time it would take to get permission. Hey, we're going to take this and make it happen. And those things have to happen sometimes in emergency medicine. You have to make rational decisions in a unrational world sometimes. So it's great that you were there. And thanks for being part of Warrior Built's family, because we do tend to have some awesome volunteers, awesome people that we associate with all the time that make incredible things happen, incredible stories that are part of Warrior Built's history, part of our military history now, and part of somebody else's history, and Chris's family. Thanks for being in touch with them, and just honoring him on his day of loss, our day of loss of Chris, and I also get to honor Chris coming up here on the 30th for the Gray Stars golf tournament in Southern California. They put on for a fundraiser for the PTSD Foundation of America. But I was asked to do these honor boards for 18 different veterans. Chris is one of them. But I will say, in doing this, it had to make me think about each one of these guys in a weird light that I normally don't go to that depth of thought process. And doing these things, it's important for us to all be able to talk about it, and for you to share the experience with your medics and all these different things. But to be able to talk about these things sometimes opens up new thought process that help you manage in trauma, in loss, in everyday, occurrences. And you as a nurse, you're always going to be on the edge of life and death, especially as a trauma nurse, a flight trauma nurse at that, and a racing nurse. So you've got like a double, triple, quadruple whammy. And your husband's racing, and you're a racer, and physical fitness. Talk about your physical fitness, dude. Thanks for everything you did for Chris. Thanks for being part of Warrior Built's mission. And thanks for being here with us today at the VTRC with Chef and I, and Brian Colburn in the background doing some really cool stuff. But talk about your physical fitness and why that's so important. I know you really put on some really good stuff. You put it out there on Facebook. It's an inspiration. And talk about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always grown up as an athlete. I come from a family of athletes. My dad was a football player, power lifter, rode motorcycles. My mom was a runner, also super fit. So for me, it was always something that it was kind of a non-negotiable. I grew up riding horses, grew up, playing soccer, running track. For us, it wasn't an option. And the thing that happens, I think, to a lot of us is as we get older, we change and life hits. And I got to a point after I got done surviving cancer to where I just wasn't happy with where I was at. I wasn't happy with, how my body felt and how I felt in my body, and decided that I was going to do something about that. And I really took the time to sit and figure out what to do next. I won't say that, I didn't have a lot of help along the way, but, I was close to 200 pounds for a while and managed to lose 60 pounds with the help of some amazing people and support. Having a plan. I won't lie, I used, GLP-1s to kind of jumpstart that and really, but made a plan with it, right? Use the tools at your disposal. I think that a big part of what people are not aware of is that there's a lot of tools that can help you, but it's finding the right ones for you. And so through that journey, it really helped me realize the benefit of health and having my son, and realizing that I need to be fit for him. I need to be able to, you know, change his tires, fuel his car, because he's also a racer. He's 8 years old and he's got a race coming up here in 2 weeks. So, mama's pit crew. So that means that I have to be able to, support him. And, everybody's like, oh, I would die for my kid, right? Or I would die for my husband or my family. But are you willing to be healthy and to live for them? Because that's a lot harder to do at the end of the day, is to sit and be very self-critical in a productive way, not beating yourself up, not sitting there and talking badly about yourself, but going, okay, how can I be better? And that was one thing that was really hard for me, and it's still hard for me to overcome. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I don't have days where I find every imperfection when I look in the mirror. I absolutely do. But at the same time, I also know the importance of sharing that journey with people. I know that watching those people helped me get to the point that I am today, and I want to be sure that I can share that with other people. So, I make sure to, share my workouts, my struggles, when I'm doing good, when I'm doing bad. If somebody has, needs help or advice or anything like that, I'm going to steer them to where I know I can. And even though I don't know everything, I'm not a personal trainer. I'm not definitely not trained in that side of things. I've learned a lot in my own journey. And, for me, being physically fit isn't just about how I look, but so much how I feel in my body. Can I do all the things that I want to do? Because I can tell you, running into a gravel trap trying to get to an upside down race car is not the easiest thing to do when you're 60, 70 pounds overweight. And so just being able to, be comfortable in my body and know that it's going to support me in all the things that I want to do is a huge part of, why I take my fitness so seriously, because whether it's supporting my son in his racing, or being able to get to an emergency, or just knowing that I am showing up every day for myself, it's one of those things that I think, takes a lot of introspection. And some days are easier than others, but at the end of the day, you're only going to be benefiting yourself by spending that time and making it happen. And it's never easy. If it was easy, then we would all look like supermodels or football players or soccer players, but we're not. Everybody's different. And so finding what works good for you. Me, if I'm running from something, if I'm running at all, I'm running from something. I'm not a runner, but I will lift all day long. So finding whatever it is that brings you joy, that allows you to be fit. Some people it's playing soccer. Some people it's, going for a walk, whatever it is. I think, there's not a one size fits all. And as long as you can find a way to take care of yourself, then you're doing it. And that's what's most important.
Nice. And thanks for sharing all that. It's so awesome to see you going through this and where you've been, and obviously visualizing medicine that for racing, getting your cameraman involved, because you always need an assistant. And that's something we do as corpsmen. We train our Marines to be our assistants too, because they are the ones that are going to need that assistance. And it's first aid, buddy aid, self aid, and then it's time to call the corpsman. So you get all these things. It's such an important part what are you going to do for the next? I mean, what do you see yourself doing in the future? Do you see yourself doing this for a long period of time, or are you going to train others to be, this racing medicine, this whole cool thing? And I've seen your transformation over the last, umpteen years since 2017. You've made huge aspects in your health and everything. It's such an inspiration to see that. But talk about what you're going to do, and are you training others to be flight nurses and other medics?
Yeah, I'm blessed to work in the field that I am, and that I have a lot of opportunities to train and teach. I still work with a lot of off-road teams to get them ready for Baja and out of country racing. So one of the things that I do is medical logistics, where I help teams prep for the medical side of things, which has for a long time gone largely unnoticed. So I work with those teams in ensuring that they're, what medical team members they have going are prepared, what that looks like, what to bring in a bag, what not to bring into a bag. A concept that is very difficult for a lot of first time, Baja medical professionals, whether they're medics, firefighters, doctors, nurses, is that, there is not backup coming to help you. You're on your own. And
Yeah,
what that could
no
mean,
one is coming. It's up to
no
us. I
one.
mean,
Yeah,
that's the
it's
banner.
you.
We have that banner at Wordbuilt. We have that 30 seconds out, the company that makes these cool banners. Yeah, no one's coming. It's up to us. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I always tell them, I said, you pack your bag on what you're willing to do by yourself for 2 hours minimum. Because the reality is most wrecks, most scenarios are going to be 2 hours by ground to the next pit crew or to the next support service. And that doesn't mean that it's even a real support service. That just might be somebody in a chase truck. And that's a very difficult thing for a lot of medical professionals to grasp, because they're used to working in teams. They're used to working with backup. They're used to working with somebody's coming. And so having them realize that a big part of what you do is going to be, can I do this for 2 hours minimum? Can I intubate and bag somebody for 2 hours? Can I stop bleeding for 2 hours? What can I do for 2 hours by myself? Because that was kind of the time threshold that I found with any portion of Baja in particular, because that's where I'm most familiar. Is 2 hours is going to be a standard time for a vehicle to get to you and to provide that backup. And then it might be another 3 hours to a clinic if you're lucky, or maybe there's a hospital within 4 hours. And so you really have to look at it in a much different perspective, almost in a military or a combat perspective. You might get lucky in that some of these aircraft are going to be in the area and be able to land and help you, but that's not always the case, and it's not something you can count on. So a big part of what I do now is ensuring that people come home, and by doing that kind of just conversationally, anecdotally, this is what I've done in the past, this is what I bring with me. You bring what you are comfortable with, because you are, potentially working out of liability, out of scope, out of country. But you have to be prepared for that if that's the role that you are choosing to walk into. And then the other thing that I do is I set most teams up that come to me with a repatriation plan, so that if they get to a clinic, we can fly them back to the States emergently. And then I also set up a logistics of the track itself. So from this race mile to this race mile, if something happens, you're going to go to this clinic for anything that involves this, or you're going to drive to this hospital for anything that involves that. And then that way that gets put in the pit books, and they have at least a better idea as to, what the plan of attack needs to be when that worst case scenario happens. For me, just learning motorsports, I take every opportunity I get to really learn more about it. There's some really cool things coming out as far as impacts and G-forces and brain injuries, which is something that we see very familiar with, combat veterans, and how that impacts decision making, how that impacts long-term survival rates, depression, anxiety, things like that. So just learning a lot more about that, traumatic brain injury aspect of racing has been very interesting, and something that, I'm very passionate about sharing and bringing awareness to as well. And, as we learn more in the motorsports world through different impacts and, working with different teams and different engineers, it really has given us the opportunity to learn more and more and more about, how those different injuries impact the brain as well as the body, whether that's dehydration, spinal cord injuries, even musculoskeletal injuries. It really is a very unique opportunity that we can learn from and take to different avenues, but outside of racing.
Right. Well, thanks a lot for sharing all this stuff. Do you have any last words from you, and a shout out to Brad real quick. I just want to put that out there again. And all of our listeners, thanks a lot for making that. It's always good to see Brad fight on deck. I'm going to get you on the show here pretty soon. Combat Purple Heart recipient as well. But if anybody wants any last words from you, how they can get a hold of you, and I want to reiterate, you can get a hold of her through me if that's the case. But I want to also say you can always come back on the show for any given time. I put these 10-minute segments out so that if there's some race you want to talk about, some event that's coming up, something that you want to promote. And, I know you touched very lightly on cancer. Thanks for, surviving that and being who you are today. You're still just getting it done. And it's amazing to see that. So I just want to highlight that for a second. And JB, you got anything to say to her before she says any last words?
It's so amazing how we've come a long ways from the early days. I used to run a motor lifeboat off the Oregon coast, and some of the things that we had to deal with in those days. And we run bigger boats, faster boats, better boats. The aircraft's better. I mean, all we can do is sharpen our skills and try and deal with what we have to deal with. But it's always great to have the tools. I live by a saying every day: it's okay to lose, don't lose the lesson. And as long as you're learning lessons in life, you'll be smarter, faster, and better. And that's what you need, especially in this kind of a rescue operation. So my hat's off to you. It's I'm on the other side of the foot. I wanted to rescue people, not fight with people. So, and that's what I did. So, but that's my choice, and but you taking on rescuing drivers and people that are out there trying to have fun and trying to excel at what they love and hurt themselves. I mean, that's wonderful. We appreciate you, Jesse. It was a great story. Really great.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be on, and kind of along your line, a running line that our team always uses is fail fast. It's okay to fail, but you learn and you get back up, and you better do it fast. So
Yeah.
that is very similar motto that we stand by is it's okay to fail, but fail fast. So it was a pleasure talking with everybody. I'm available on social media. You can message me on any one of those. And I think Chief got those put up, but you can also get a hold of me through him if you have questions. And just, it was a pleasure talking to everybody today and getting to share some of my stories and experiences. And it was an absolutely a blast.
Well,
thanks, Jesse.
Our hats are off to you, and keep doing what you're doing. Okay.
Deal.
We need you. All right.
Nice. Hey, JB, good to see you. I mean, we got a lot to talk about, and then we'll break into your kitchen, Chef JB's kitchen, and talk about that for a minute. And obviously, we talked about it a little bit, with all the cooking you did this, and the adventure of getting the smoker up to the canyon and everything. I mean, we always have some good adventures, and there's some tires involved and some axles involved and all kinds of amazing stories, of different
it's
things.
like every time we touch the big smoker, we have about a 4,000 pound smoker. It's on a trailer, and
you could feed 5,000 people a day on that.
Yeah, 5,000 off of it if I had to. And every time we go to move it someplace, we end up with an adventure.
But what do you recommend? I mean, what do you got going on this week that was super cool? Obviously, the 4th of July, 250th year anniversary, and that's what's on my hat. That's what's on my shirt. I just want to celebrate that for a little bit longer. Talk about your week, JB.
Well, we did the 4th of July. We did it up in Cold Creek, which is about 55 miles from Las Vegas. It's up in the hills, in the foothills of Mount Charleston. So it was 82 degrees that day with a 5-mile-an-hour breeze, which is most wonderful, especially when we're living in 106 in Las Vegas. That's like a 30-degree temperature change, which is really wonderful when you're cooking. And we smoked lobster tails. We smoked some shrimp. We smoked some walleye pike. We fried some alligator tail. We, did a seafood boil on the king crab legs. Just had a great time. Did some Cajun fish. And just people brought stuff. We had about 100 people come and go throughout the day. Everybody's celebrating, everybody having a good time. It was this is my 5th year doing this, and it's absolutely wonderful. I mean, it's like I get to celebrate the birth of our nation and our country. And Jim Lintner is one of the founders of the Veterans Transition Resource Center that you're at and working out of. And
he was on the podcast about 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I couldn't get to the shop in time to do the show, so I had to come home. I have set up here, and today I have Dr. Annie from UNLV's Wellness Center, and she's a health doctor and does health and wellness for UNLV. Works with the school there, the physician school, the doctor's school, and the dentist. They're starting to realize that, to be optimal as a doctor or a dentist and doing that, they have to be in good shape also. Like, what Jessie was saying, she has to be somewhat at a peak performance, especially what her job entails. And so Dr. Annie, works with the Blooming Bistro for St. Jude's Ranch. I do workforce development for 18 to 22-year-old kids that are still on foster care. They're on adult foster care. And before, when they were 22 and off the foster care program, adult foster care, they just go back to being homeless. So, they were never trained to do anything. It wasn't like, we now realize that we have to train them, at least workforce development, like we work with the state of Nevada. And we're not talking they have to be in a restaurant setting, but we're teaching them, this is how you need to get dressed. It's sort of like the military in boot camp. You got to get dressed every day. You got to shower every day. You got to show up and suit up, and you got to be available, and those are the things that we start to teach them. And then, through the state of Nevada, we actually interview them, mock interviews. We set up job fairs for them with like Caesars International. Some of the managers come out and interview them. Besides the mock interviews, they get some resumes built for them by Nevada State Unemployment. Some of the people come out and talk with them about what's good on a resume, what people are looking for, managers and such. So it's giving them a leg up, and that's it's about, like I said, suiting up and showing up, but also having the tools to go out to the workforce in today's market, and that's what's important. And, I get to be a part of that, because of my years in the restaurant business and hospitality business on a lot of different levels. I've been able to set standards, build systems, front of the house, back of the house, teaching syllabuses to what they actually need and what they're going to use in, probably starter positions, in the food and beverage industry or hospitality industry. Doesn't mean they got to stay there. I mean, we have people working as, marketing. We have people working in other aspects, office employment. It's kind of like they start here and then they move forward. And that's really good. And a lot of our early students were high school kids that were kicked out of high school and then went to Mission High School, which is a very exclusive high school, about 20 students. And, they have to stay clean and sober. They have to, go to meetings. They have to go to work when we schedule them. They have to come to school. They get graduated. They actually get a diploma, and before, what chance they had to do any of that was pretty small, people. I mean, it wasn't like we weren't paying attention. It was just nobody was focusing on that. And in Las Vegas,
the focus has always been the medical care, the fostering care, and just making sure they make it to 18. But
18, and now it's 22.
Yeah, and now it's 22. But if you don't have any of these skills that Chef's talking about, that they don't put a big importance on, being disciplined enough in your life to get a shower, brush your teeth, do these simple things. How can you expect them to be responsible in the job world? And Chef's got this, great program going on. It's not just for them, it's also, for society. It helps society out in so many different ways. And, Chef has incorporated me in there sometimes. And, I get my eyes open to, take these guys, they don't have driver's licenses. So it's kind of hard to navigate some of their transportation, their logistics. I mean, there's just so many things to it, riding a bus properly to get to work on time versus, there's just a lot of things that Chef is putting in there. Schedule yourself and be responsible, coordinate.
Yeah. And, today with communication the way it is, the first thing you got to do is take away their phone, which they don't like, but it's like if they go to a job, they can't be on their phone while they're at their job. It's like they're getting paid, so, but it's a learning process. And it's, we do a lot of things for like United Way and other nonprofits that we're working with, churches. And
Chef, if I can, the Blooming Bistro is what is the work environment for these guys. And that is giving them that place. And it's a great place to have lunch, but it also caters. And that's why you're talking about the United Way. You catered to them a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
you also did a retirement. You did so many other things. Catering capability out of that.
I mean, these were people that interacted with the Blooming Bistro since its beginning, and we've done box lunches for them. And now we're kind of branching out a little bit, doing charcuterie boards and thing in our catering program. But
obviously sponsoring the Blooming Bistro and the students that are coming out of St. Jude's to learn from that. Such a cool thing. And thanks to United Way and all that.
If you're in Las Vegas, it's 860 South Rancho off of Charleston and Rancho, down in the University Medical Center down there in Smith's parking lot. And we're open Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday right now from 11 to 6. And everything, you just keep taking it one day at a time. And I work with the veterans. I work with the chefs. I work with St. Jude's Ranch now. And then I have, a spice line that I do. And, eventually I might put a school together. Who knows? God's got the master plan.
You've already been in the schools and, these schools, but you're talking about another one. Chef is never done. That's what's motivating about you, Chef. Thanks a lot for motivating me to be here at the VTRC. Veteran Transition Resource Center. Obviously, being a resource center, there's so many resources, so many passions that people have. What is yours out there? And Chefs is always, helping these crazy situations. And I say that because I've seen him work before. And the guy's a beast.
And this week has been a good week. I got a call from one of the new chefs that graduated from the culinary program at CSN, and he's 100% disabled. He has a therapy dog and stuff. But one of the guys in munitions, he was a 20-year retiree Marine, and his house burned down in Pahrump, and he's got a wife and a couple of kids. So Adam called me and said, this guy needs some help. He's been, you talk about night and day. One day.
Yeah, you can see that on my social media. I actually shared that through the network that, it's being put out there. He's 20-year Air Force vet, if I'm not mistaken.
No, this guy was a Marine. That might be another
one.
Yeah, his name was Jacob Purnell.
Okay.
Purnell. And I called a couple of friends that I work with in that own realty company, and they have some rental property out there. They said they'd give them a call, and I gave them their number. So I think we're going to get him set up okay. You never know what we can do in the VTRC until you call us and ask us if you need some needs for not just veterans, but their spouses, their family. I put a couple of kids into apprenticeship programs that are children of long-term vets. So, it's just, you never know what we can do. I touch a lot of people's lives, and they touch mine. So it's about networking. You know that. You got work yourself. You got
it's all part of it. It gets right wrapped up into the VTRC. So the Veterans Transition Resource Center. Obviously, my resources become that resources, that your resources that I know about become that, and other people's, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But Jeff, you got any last word?
Jesse's on. So it's like, we keep, and every week we get somebody new on that, new family, it's great. It's absolutely.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what keeps us going. So tomorrow I'm headed to Oxnard, California, just above Malibu. And I'm going to go down and the spice plant and pick up some more spices, my tri-tip and my barbecue rub, and some barbecue sauce that they make for me. And we'll have those at the Blooming Bistro now. So we'll have an outlet for them. And all the proceeds go to St. Jude's Ranch.
Nice. So, well, thanks a lot, Chef.
Yeah.
Hey, we're gonna get Brian Colburn on here to do feed drops, and every week I talk about it. Feed drops is a live version of criticizing positively or negatively the podcast, and seeing where it's going and seeing where we can go and making improvements. And if you look it up online, Feed Drops is also taking live podcasts and giving them that same critique, and it's great. Brian, how you doing, brother? United States Marine Corps
well.
On deck.
Thank you.
Here with me here in the VTRC.
I am.
Yes.
Chef.
Yeah.
Awesome job, man. It was good to see you this weekend at the barbecue.
Yeah, I'm getting to see you quite a bit now.
For some reason. That smoker looked absolutely amazing. I hope to see more of it and what comes off of it. But awesome to see you, and driving that hill to the location. I can only imagine what it took to limp that smoker up that hill.
Oh, we didn't limp it. We had a backhoe pick up the back of us. We left it on the truck, and we went 4 miles an hour for 2.5 miles.
Yeah, in my world, we call that limping.
Yeah, well,
it was quite a trick, but we made it happen.
Too funny.
It became a military rescue mission.
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely. But you know what? That speaks volumes to the military mind. It's like, we have a mission. It's not, oh, we're stuck, we can't do this. It's no, this thing has to be in this location at this time. What do we have to do to get it there? And that's just how we stay focused and we accomplish everything we need to accomplish in life. So it's awesome to see that still play out so many years after we've left, put the uniform away. Awesome. Yeah. Hey, today's show, I had the fortunate pleasure to meet Chris and interact with him a few times when I was working with the Warrior Belt Foundation with a photography program. And that to hear Jesse's story and the situation from her point of view was awesome. So kind of a cool story. I did drop the link to the tribute video on YouTube on Warrior Belt's channel in the chat. It is on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So if you haven't seen it, take a look. He was an incredible guy. And as far as today's show, one question at a time, man. Yeah. Chief, you were firing 2 and 3 questions. And the issue is you want them all answered, right? But now we're giving control to the guest to answer which ones they want to answer. And it's easy to forget ones they don't want to answer. And it's also easy for them to rearrange which question they answer. But that might screw up the storyline you're trying to paint. So, and I know it's like these things are all in our head, but that's where those bullet points come in. And or if it's something on the fly, just make a quick note, and then you can incorporate that into that bullet list so we don't miss something we want the audience to hear, which was very cool. And Chef, man, it was awesome to see you come in and adjust your camera angle and zoom in a bit. That was perfect. I loved it.
My little remote ran out of battery power.
That's all right. That's all right. You handled it.
Hey, you got it squared away before it did because it's perfect.
Yeah. Yep. And FedEx comes right in the middle of the show, rings the doorbell,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And those are some pretty sexy shorts you're sporting there, Chef.
Yeah. You can't see shorts. Oh, yeah, I got up to get
you got up and walked away.
I'm like, oh, let me pull him down.
Yeah.
Oh, too funny. But you know what? That's the beauty of live, man. It's like so many podcasters take themselves so seriously. And when it's live, you can't help but to chuckle, if not laugh at yourself from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
But it's definitely. It's real. This is real life. And these are real guys trying to help tell a real story and share awesome information that are going on with the local youth here in Las Vegas. And it's phenomenal. It's really cool to see. But you guys did a great job today. Great story. It was awesome to hear Jesse's side of the story. And
very.
I mean, Chief, you were the one that called me and told me. And it hit me. And I didn't serve with Chris. I only interacted with him a few times, but we spent some time together. And yeah, just good to, it kind of brought some closure, because I heard it from you. I heard it from the Warrior Build. I watched the tribute video, but now I got to hear her side, which was really cool, man. So great episode, great guest. Keep crushing, boys.
It is, Brian.
They had him stabilized for a little bit. So, probably in the old days, he would have laid out in the desert, so to speak. And I don't want to say that, but, that'd be I wouldn't even like to think of that, Yeah, I used to wake up sometimes thinking about, drowning in the ocean and all by myself, and it's just what it is,
Right. But good job, boys. We'll see you next week.
Hey, Brian, thanks a lot. Hey, the critique is awesome. Thanks for really, sending it out there. I need to slow down my questions, and hey, it's great. This is how cool it is to get live critique to better this show. And to if you're a podcaster, it's going to better your show if you're paying attention to some of the things Brian says. And, you check out that feed drops, and this is being feed dropped right here live for you. And Chef, thanks for being here with me all the time and making this happen with us, brother. It's so great.
It is good.
Any last words from you, Chef?
I love you, man, and I love Brian. It was good to have him around now, so maybe we'll be able to incorporate him in some more things. I'll keep you busy, Brian. Don't worry.
Good
all
stuff.
right.
Hey, I just want to say thanks to the VTRC, the Warrior Built Foundation, and just to put it out there, Jesse is sponsored and supported by Red Bull. The Warrior Built Foundation is sponsored by Monster Energy. So I just want to say that's one of our biggest sponsors. So it's great to have that. And I want to say thanks to the PTSD Foundation of America for having the warrior groups. I do 3 of them a week. So if you need a warrior group for you, just some camaraderie, some good stuff, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, hit me up and we'll get you on that in one of those groups. And the other thing, Recon Chief Incorporated and all the other nonprofits that I'm lucky enough to be part of and doing some stuff with, even though you're not here, QRF.com. I just talked to you guys yesterday, and QRFup.com. Check that out. It's such a great piece to be involved in, and that's another racing category as well with all kinds of other things part of that. And Brian Colburn, SitchRadio.com for putting the show out, and Chef JB Brown for making this happening thing through the VTRC. Chef, you got anything else?
Nope, that's it. Have a great day and bon appetit.
Until next time, strength and honor out.
The only way, and we need nothing more. The only way, together forever, that's for sure.